Connected in 3D, Real-Time Solutions and Digital Twins podcast with your host, Ashley Crowder.
Hi, welcome to Connected in 3D, Real-Time Solutions and Digital Twins. I'm your host, Ashley Crowder, the co-founder of Ventana. I've been working in the 3D space for almost 20 years, and so many enterprises from medical, industrial manufacturing to consumer goods are seeing amazing progress using 3D and immersive tech. But there's still so many questions around the technologies. So that's why we've started this podcast where I'm interviewing some of my incredible friends who are amazing experts in various parts of the space at the forefront of emerging technology. And I'm so excited. Today we have Teri Yarbrow and Max Almy joining us. They are the co-founders of MagkaVRx, an Emmy award-winning digital media design company. They're creators of a new project called Creating Awe. Teri is an award-winning creative director and professor of XR medicine at Mercer University, known for her groundbreaking work using virtual reality to enhance palliative care and improve the quality of life of patients. Max Almy, an internationally recognized media artist, creative technologist, and former dean of creative technology at SCAD, brings decades of experience in immersive media. Together, Teri and Max are transforming how we think about healthcare, using XR to deliver on-spine therapy for patients facing serious challenges. I'm excited to dive into their journey and explore how immersive technology is changing lives. Thank you guys so much
for having
joining.
us. Yes, we're excited.
Our pleasure.
So let's just jump in. What inspired you both to found MagkaVRx, and how did your collaboration begin?
Max and I have been working as digital artists, immersive artists for years. It's our side hustle, you might say. Max and I have been showing in museums and galleries, and it's just been our passion. And really, the thing that brought us to MagkaVRx was a show that we did in which we created 3 immersive installations, and one of them was virtual reality. And that came out of this desire. We saw that people wanted to get inside our installations. They wanted to be inside the light, if you will. So we created a VR piece called Radiance, in which you stand in a shower of light in VR. And it had such an impact. People were saying, people that were non-techies were saying, I'm not afraid to die. We had lines outside the museum. It was at the museum in Savannah called the Telfair Museum. And from that, we started getting ideas that we could take this, it might have great use with hospice patients and palliative care patients.
Yeah, we were recruited to go to Savannah. I was a dean and Teri became a professor. We created the first VR XR program, BFA in Creative University in the country. And, Teri was teaching it to students that were so excited about it. And we did this show and we did our very first VR piece.
Yeah.
After having done tons of, technologically innovative pieces all throughout the decades. And we did the first VR piece. And as Teri said, it was just a mind blower, the way people reacted to it. And we thought, oh my God, we're onto something. We've got to keep going with this.
The other thing, and this is very personal, is I was with my mother when she transitioned, and it was some years ago, and she was in hospice, and I was so moved by her experience, and we didn't have virtual reality, and we didn't have much support. In fact, in the area of pastoral care or counseling, or a lot of patients wait for the priest or the minister or the rabbi to show up, and nobody shows up because of these programs are short-staffed. And what I ended up doing for my mom is I took her favorite music arias and symphonies and I put them on an iPod. Do you remember that technology, iPods? That's all we had.
Way back when.
So she had a headset on, and that's what she listened to while she was doing her act of dying. And after she left her body, I had this feeling like, wow, we could do so much more for people in the end-of-life experience. And that's really, for me, what started, my obsession, my passion to really help the suffering of people in end of life. And I started doing end of life stories for hospice, recording video messages for family members from patients. And then when we did our show, Radiance, it was like a no-brainer. We should take virtual reality to patients, So that's what started this.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's such it makes so much sense. I mean, your journey and the personal experience you had. VR is just a new medium, right? You were doing these immersive installations, and people wanted to get inside, and it's just the power of VR is like a true experience. I know it's like your brain recognizes it as a actual experience you're having, not like reading a book or just listening to music or watching a video, which is why I think it's so powerful. And you touched on this a little bit, but Max, you're from creative technology and Teri from immersive healthcare. How did your personal backgrounds kind of shape the vision for creating awe? And you touched on it a little bit, but would love to hear more.
Well, we worked together as artists for years. We also worked together in a design company in LA for years. So we worked hand in hand on numerous projects, art projects, very, aesthetically interesting and innovative projects, and also projects for clients. So it just kind of evolved that we were always working together on projects. And, I could be Teri kind of went off on a side gig working with hospice, doing these interesting tests, and she can tell you about the testing in a minute, how effective it is, how neurologically sound all this science is. And, I was her champion. As the dean at SCAD, I could support what she was doing because she got students involved. They ended up making amazing projects for the patients, winning awards, getting international awards for the work that they were doing. And I don't know, it's just been this hand in hand kind of, working together like we always have for years, but really an exciting new area.
Yeah. Before we go too deep into this, I wanted to define something, and I know this may sound rudimentary, but there's virtual reality, which is, a synthetic world. You're completely enveloped with a head-mounted display or headset, right? And then there's augmented reality, which is like floating digital content on a mobile device. And always Pokemon Go is a really good example of that. And then there's mixed reality. And I love to think about IKEA Place, where your phone has the capability to put a mesh down in your environment, and then we can put a couch to scale in your living room, and you can decide before you shop. So mixed reality is combining the two. Well, then there's this new thing, and this whole area is called XR, right?
More confusing.
Right. But then we call it medical extended reality. XR is extended reality. So there's medical extended reality. And then to make matters even crazier, the FDA has come out with a designation called MXR, medical extended reality, and the FDA has given it a designation for these kinds of projects. And they're gaining traction, and some of them will be paid back by Medicare and insurance companies. And there's a number of companies that are working in this space that have FDA approval. So we are at the beginning of this revolution where we're going to see virtual reality projects, augmented reality projects, mixed reality projects, all of them being reviewed by the FDA, and some of them given designations so that it can be billed back in our vast hospital complex.
Which is a whole nother story.
Super important.
But and that's what I think is so important. This is not just a fun visual experience. I know there's over 19,000 studies that have been done or something. I was reading through your presentation.
Right, and I think we don't even talk about the efficacy of mixed reality anymore because it's proven. There are so many studies that prove why does it work. But I always love to reference where it started. At least my understanding of it started with a project called Snow World, which came out of the University of Washington with Hunter Hoffman and his crew. And what they did is they put soldiers who came back from the war with third-degree burns, and they did wound care, putting them in this VR experience called Snow World, excuse me. And what the vets did is they threw snowballs at penguins, and they were in a snow scene listening to Paul Simon music. Do you know who that is?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I do.
so they were able to take off all of their bandages, and apparently when the skin that's been really burned meets the oxygen, it's supposed to be incredibly painful. These vets did not experience pain. And usually there's tremendous anxiety in wound care when you have a third-degree burn. And the reason it's working, there's a number of reasons, but one is the idea of the neurological gate theory, which states that if you stimulate the prefrontal cortex of the brain in a deep immersion, and it doesn't have to be VR, it can be extreme sports, but your brain literally puts up a neurological gate that those pain impulses can't get in. And that's super profound. It also affects how your brain records pain and how long pain is happening for. So it's kind of like the basis of what pain management in VR or immersive therapy is about.
Yeah, no, it's really incredible. And to your point, there's so many studies, it is proven. And in your work, you both emphasize awe as this core experience of healing. How does the concept of awe, work, and how are you all defining it?
Well, we first started learning a lot more about awe when we heard talks, we read papers by some of the important people. Teri, go ahead and tell about.
Okay, so awe has been framed by Dagner Keltner. He's from Berkeley, and he's defined it as that you're in the presence of something bigger than yourself, and it can be looking at nature, being in the Grand Canyon. The astronauts describe awe as the overview effect. Once you see the Earth from outer space, your life has changed. There's a need for accommodation. You can't go back to the way you felt about the Earth or about your life. So awe is a profound experience, but it's also now being documented by scientists. And we've been lucky to work with David Yaden, who's doing a lot of research out of MIT and Johns Hopkins, and he uses virtual reality to induce awe in patients, and then he records where in the brain does awe occur. So it's not like a woo-woo emotion. It's up there with joy, contentment. These are things that help people thrive. And what I experience in my work with patients is that if you can get somebody to take their eye off their diagnosis, I've got cancer, I'm going to die, why me? That existential crisis, if you can get them to pivot, you can induce awe. You can get them out of their frame of reference about their disease identification into something else. And that's what our Creating Awe project is about. And one thing we do know about VR is that it hijacks the brain. It takes 30 seconds to believe that this synthetic digital world is real. And Max mentioned that we had created work with students at SCAD. And the reason we all started making VR for good and projects for patients is my class was called the Immersive Revolution. Join us. And what it was, we were creating projects, but we were also looking at an overview. How is XR being used? It's in fashion, it's in the arts, it's in engineering, it's in science, it's in
architecture, auto design, just everything you can think of.
But when we got to medicine, that's when everybody kind of had this aha moment. Oh my God, I can make something to really help somebody. And the idea of creating VR for good, it was like an epiphany for students. And so we started to make projects for students and take them to hospice and take them to palliative care centers. And it was quite profound.
They did 7 projects altogether. It was amazing. And the students were thrilled to be not only working on projects for good, but also going and seeing the results with the patients, which were phenomenal, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have a 2-year-old, and so when you talk about awe, I want to just bottle up, like, every day she's awed by she's never seen an airplane before. She's never it's
Yeah,
that joy and
yeah.
Well, it turns
incredibleness.
out it's
I
incredibly
always if I could just
it
bottle it
turns
up.
out it's incredibly
Yeah.
healing too at the same time.
Right.
They have an transcendent experience that, I mean, this has all been documented. And, that's the other part of it is that the neurologists have totally not only seen it in the brain and the results of it, but they've also tracked that VR is one of the best ways to, I mean, unless you're out in the middle of the Grand Canyon or something like that, it's one of the best ways to induce awe because it's so immersive. It's so surrounding. I mean, it can be amazing music, can be amazing experiences, and it can trigger that transcendent experience.
It also medically is proven that awe, it silences a part of your brain called the default mode network.
Yeah.
And that is a part of you that's always criticizing you. It's your inner critic that's saying, well, why didn't you do this better? What are you doing with your life? So if you can imagine, if you have stage 4 cancer, that voice is probably going to be really active, and activate an existential crisis. It's your fault that you're sick. I mean, that's some of the stuff that I've observed with patients is a lot of self-blame and recrimination. And what awe does for people is it releases oxytocin. It silences the default mode network. It stops that chatter. So something else can enter, and that something else can be awe. It could also just be the moment that you feel good. You remember stuff that you liked to do before you got sick. And that can be really healing in
Yeah.
itself.
For sure. And so, we've talked about there's study after study proving this works. So what are the biggest challenges in bringing XR into more end of life care settings? Why aren't we seeing this in more
Well,
places?
believe it or not, it's rapidly growing. There's numbers of companies that are out there kind of moving in and scaling into different niches of medicine. And we happen to be in this niche of like end of life, serious illness, utilizing awe, investigating awe. So that's one area, but it's growing everywhere. So sooner or later, I mean, in places, I don't know. I mean, I think certain states have had a lot of growth, and but it's spreading quite rapidly because it's so effective. And we're getting all kinds of requests because, with the amount of time and effort that we've put into it, we know about not only the VR itself and that VR therapy, but also how to train for it, how to prepare for it, how to become a VR therapist and work effectively with it. So these are all really important stages, and it is growing. It's amazing. It's growing.
I think some of the challenges is just understaffing. When you have like 10 seriously ill patients, and you've got to do your charts, and there's a crisis on the floor. A lot of times, a nurse may not have the time to stop. Okay, we're going to do VR now, right? So it really takes like an integrative medicine approach. It takes having somebody on board that's going to talk to the patient and prep them and say, okay, you're going to meet the doctor, but first I want you to have a VR session, and then we'll go over how you're doing. It's got to be integrated into the whole plan. I was fortunate to work at the Stewart Center for Palliative Care in Savannah, and we did a trial and an IRB program. And so the head doctor there integrated the VR sessions into her routine. So patients would come in, they'd check in, they would do a quick, they would check, their vitals. They go to VR first, and then they would see the doctor. The other thing that was really helpful for me is I had to start wearing a white medical jacket. Otherwise, I look like a civilian, and I'm okay. I'm offering, today we're going to do basket weaving. No. I had to wear the white. I had to wear the white lab jacket to be recognized by a patient as a therapist. And
That's
isn't that
so
crazy?
interesting.
Yeah.
When we give
Yeah.
presentations and when Teri presents case studies at various conferences and things like that, people just really go crazy because each one is so fascinating about how each illness and what the effect that the sessions had, everything from like a person coming into one of those sessions that you were talking about, and the nurse brings in the patient and she's wild-eyed and crazy and just so distraught. And Teri just carefully works with her and, and
That's
really,
amazing.
shows them these things. They have an experience, and they came out. And one of the big, we quoted this in the book, that they said that, when she came out, it was like she went in, she was a hot mess. That was the quote. And when she came out, she was just like smiling,
Oh,
normal.
you're talking about the
that one
patient.
case study.
Yeah.
But the case studies, each one is so fascinating about how people respond to this stuff, how well they respond to it, and then all the little issues that you run into and things like that. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. And Teri, I know you're a founding member of the American Medical Extended Reality Association. So talk a bit about that organization and what role it's playing in advancing the
I think
adoption
that
of XR
the
in
American
healthcare.
Medical Extended Reality Association is very much like the AMA. It is set up to set standards and guidelines. It's also a community of physicians, practitioners, researchers, students, to support this growing effort for medical extended reality. I mean, frankly, there's an opioid, crisis globally, right? And it's a lot easier to just prescribe meds, but this this society really believes that we can make a difference. We can, turn the corner. We can prescribe other things like a VR pharmacy that's full of, experiences that can really transform the patient experience of pain. And that pain can be existential and psychological. It can be PTSD, as well as, physical pain. But it's a lot easier to just hand somebody a prescription and say, go get oxytocin or oxycodone, excuse me, and and you've got that cycle starting. The AMXRA also has a journal, and it publishes cutting edge research of what's going on. And it's not just palliative care and cancer and hospice. It's orthopedic. It's dentistry. It's neuroscience articles. It's the spectrum is huge.
Rehabilitation,
Surgery
assist, surgery training, all types of training and education in medicine.
and also wellness.
Yeah,
You know,
wellness, the
wellness is
wellness communities,
It's huge.
like meditation and all of those things to relieve anxiety, which is, depression is rampant in the world. And it's a huge issue. It's one of
There's a conference called VMed, Virtual Medicine, and it
Mhm.
happens every year at Cedars-Sinai. And last year there was a discussion about this depression and anxiety epidemic globally, and that
Mhm.
there's not enough therapists, and that XR medicine can help with some of the AI things that are going on. I don't know if you're familiar with Skip Rizzo. He's over at USC, and he's a pioneer in virtual reality, and he's done a lot of work with PTSD, and he's using AI assist in creating applications for vets who come back from the military, where they can have some a combat buddy in AI, like an AI avatar, if you will, that will journey with them in between their therapy sessions. And if they're in a crisis, the AI agent will deploy a suicide prevention group to them. So it's
Yeah, that's actually so I did engineering at USC, and the Institute of Creative Technology is actually what got me into this whole world, because I saw that. It was amazing, the VR experiences to help soldiers with PTSD. It's incredible, because you want to be able to talk to a buddy, and so many of these people aren't comfortable talking to a regular therapist in person who doesn't have their same background, might not feel like they can understand
Right.
being at war. So it's incredible. And then you mentioned surgical training. I mean, study after study has proven that training in VR results in better outcomes. to the point where, like, if I ever need surgery, I'm going to ask my surgeon if they've done training in VR, because it's proven that you're going to be better, you know?
There's a phenomenal video of a girl with an aneurysm. I mean, she wakes up with this horrible headache, and she ends up, lucky for her, I think she's at Hoag Memorial, which is in Southern California, and her surgeon takes her MRI and extrudes it, with AI into a database, and now he can fly through her brain, and he can work. He can do all kinds of pre-visualizations on how he's going to do the operation, because one false move, man, she could be blind. So yeah, I feel the same way. Nobody's going to touch me without a VR test flight. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've mentioned AI a couple of times. I mean, we are in just at this incredible time of the world where we have AI converging with 3D graphics and incredible processing power on machines. What are you most excited about exploring with immersive therapy now with, haptic feedback and AI powered VR? Where do you see this going?
From a personal point of view, Max and I are working on a project called Creating Awe. And what Creating Awe is immersive VR therapy programs that will induce awe. And we want to use haptic technology so that it's not just something that you see visually, right? I have a patient that I see here in Greece, and I've been seeing him for about a year, and he has pulmonary fibrosis. He was given 3 years to live. He's in his 4th year. His lungs are at 45% capacity. And when he does this one project of ours called Radiance, he can feel it in his chest, which is amazing because he's seeing it with his eyes, but he can feel it where it needs to go. And that was like, oh my God, what if we could create a haptic correlation with what he's seeing in VR and put it on his body? And now we've got, that whole feedback loop going. So
right now we're working on being able to have the patient reach in and direct the things toward their body, and then big enhancement that would just augment the situation, make it that much more amazing. So
and interactive.
That's what we're working on right now.
There's a
but I will say that haptic wise or AI wise, I mean, it's so successful with things as ubiquitous as the trip meditation VR, which millions of people are using.
Trip. Nene Reeves is a good friend.
We love Nene.
We love Nene. And it's like, they've created this marvelous thing, and they keep expanding it. And most recently, it's more like AI and a lot of feedback, and you can really get involved with your own therapy and your own, curated meditation, your own healing. Yeah. And that's what we want to do. We want the person involved in creating awe to be not only awe transcended, but at the same time be involved in their own healing, bringing healing to themselves. And neurologically, we've checked this out quite a bit. It's totally sound. Talking to neurologists, if they can get the feeling, that they are helping themselves and bringing this intention, bringing this focus to themselves, that's what we want to try to really enhance.
Definitely. And for anybody listening, if you have a Quest or Apple Vision Pro, Trip is a great VR meditation app that anyone can get on a headset. So it's a great kind of step to learn, if this is all brand new to you, what we're talking about. But yeah, going back to creating awe. So where can people access this, or if there's doctors listening, how can health organizations start bringing this technology into their everyday work?
Well, MagkaVRx, we're just starting to license programs to hospital systems, so this is a good time. Good time for us.
Reach us if you want to.
And then also, we have a book coming out, and it's being published by Routledge Publications, which is, they do textbooks. So this is I'm really honored that this is coming out. It's available on Amazon. It's called Virtual Reality for Serious Illness, and it's with Dr. Kathleen Benton, who's the CEO and president of Hospice Savannah and Stewart Center for Palliative Care, and myself. We're the editors, and we've written 4 chapters. And then we have doctors from all over the world who are working in VR who have contributed chapters. And one is Dr. Brennan Spiegel from Cedars-Sinai, who runs the VMed conference. He's contributed a chapter, and Dr. Jose Ferrar from Barcelona. He's running 5 studies about VR burnout for healthcare workers. He's got programs where you've got a timeout room in a hospital and you've just had a really stressful session. You can go and put on VR and you can go surfing in Tahiti. And that will really get your blood pressure pumping like you're ready to go back and meet those patients. Sarah Hill from Helium has written a chapter on biometrics in VR. There's a section of the book that's about pediatrics, how VR is being used in University of Padua, Italy. So I'm really excited that this book is coming out. And I just think that this area is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It has to, because the healthcare system is broken the way it is.
It is. We can't, we know just prescribing pills is not working, right? And there's so much more that can be done. And to your point, with short staff, XR, VR is an amazing tool to use, because and even I know my sister was a physical therapist, and just some of the patients couldn't even get to the hospital to get the physical therapy. Like that was extremely difficult. So the more therapy that can be done in the comfort of your home with this technology is
There's something called applied VR, and they're FDA approved, and you can do it at home. And there's rehab and back pain. Those are the first areas that have received FDA approval. And there's like maybe 3 really good products in the market right now that you can get for home therapy using VR. And it will send your results back to your doctor. It's not like you're on your own. The other thing I wanted to mention, we were talking about AI, and there's another program, and I'm not sure if it's available on the Quest, but I know it's available for Apple Pro. And it's called Xia, Xia, and it's from Brennan Spiegel and the folks at Cedars-Sinai, and it's another kind of therapy buddy. And this is like a really great looking avatar that talks to you anytime, anywhere. So I think a lot of these AI assistants in VR is real. It's kind of like the next wave.
Definitely. And so, for people looking to get involved, like how have you helped educate and train volunteers and students to help participate? And what are some tips for people who are wanting to get into this?
Well, obviously having some experience with virtual reality helps. I'm going to train a team in New York. They don't have any VR experience, so we're packaging up modules that will play inside the Oculus, and we'll do some Zoom training. But I think that there's a process of onboarding that is really important, where we find out meet the patient where they're at. So if somebody is super low blood pressure, we're not going to put them in a meditation. We're going to try to do things to bring their level up. And if somebody is really, bouncing off the walls with anxiety, we're going to use products that are going to bring, help ground them and get them back in their bodies and in touch with nature and get them grounded. So I think that learning VR is one way to start. There's a lot written about VR therapy, and that's available. MagkaVRx, we have a lot of resources on our website under additional links.
Yeah, and in the book, I'm not pushing the book right now, but Teri did do some writing in the book that was helpful for future
for
VR
onboarding,
onboarding and VR therapists and all of that. It comes with experience, and a lot of times it isn't just the nurses in these facilities. They get a whole, there's volunteers, and the volunteers get excited about this stuff, and they get trained up.
Yeah.
And they figure out the technology, and then they start doing it, and they learn how to deal with patients and curate experiences. And it becomes this kind of interesting mix between a healing, a personality for healing, and the technology, and choosing the right experiences, and having a good bedside manner, and making the whole thing be a really healing experience.
But also listening. I think that again, one of the reasons I think that the healthcare system is broken, I don't know, the doctors that I see, they don't turn their back to me and fill out, my stats on their computer. They turn around, they talk to me, but a lot of times people don't have time for that. They're in a clinic, they have to see 15 patients within their workload. But I think that what we can do with VR is we can listen, we can stop, we can hear what the patient is saying. Sometimes just hearing, oh my God, my husband hates the way I look and told me to go on a diet, and I'm dying and he doesn't want to recognize that, and la, la, la. Sometimes just being a really good listener, the onboarding process is really important. And then at the end of the session, sitting with them and talking to them. What was that for you? What did you experience? How was that? Would you want to do it again? Getting just that whole interaction going. It's all part of it. It's not like you take a VR headset and say, hey, here's Beat Saber. I'm going to go get a beer and you're going to go have fun. No. It's it's an intentional process, and it's prescriptive is what it is.
Yeah, it's a tool for doctors to be led, therapists. That makes sense. Well, thank you both so much for joining. This was incredibly insightful. And just to reiterate one more time, where can people go to find you and learn more of your book and license potentially some of this amazing FDA-approved experiences?
MagkaVRx.com is a way to contact us. We're on LinkedIn, Teri Yarbrow and Max Almy. We're on LinkedIn as well. And the book is called Virtual Reality for Serious Illness. I think it's available for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Yeah. So very exciting time.
Well, thank you both so much. It was so great having you on.
I really appreciate it, Ashley.